we'll now call our workshop to order. And first, the item is to adopt the proposed agenda, which you have seen a copy of it, I'm sure, by now. And I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I take one's a motion, one's a second, right?
Second. There you go.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Next, we have the adoption of minutes, and there's 8 consent items on your agenda for tonight, and I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda and or minutes and the consent items. The minutes are from the November 18th, 2025 regular meeting and the December 2nd, 2025 organizational meeting.
Make a motion to approve the 8 consent items
Second.
And the minutes.
and the minutes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. We're going to go down to number 9 here. We do have our auditor.
Mayor, we're going to start out with Jake Connor with Malden & Jenkins. He's going to present the audit report. You should have a copy in front of you in case you want to follow along or ask Connor to go through page by page, whatever you'd like after his presentation, Mayor.
Page by page.
Page by page. Well, we might be a little late getting to dinner then.
We've got some snacks, Mayor. We'll bring them in.
That might take a while.
Okay, here we go. Well, I'm Jake Connor with Malden & Jenkins. We performed the external audit this year for fiscal year 2025. We might be meeting a little bit later than you guys might be used to. That's because the deadline is 12/31 now, and also just compliance supplement that we use for our audit was also a little delayed getting out, and so that didn't come out until I think it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. So a nice little early Christmas gift, but we did get everything submitted by the deadline 12/31. So just a little brief on that. So our agenda today, we're just going to kind of run through these. This is high level. I'm going to go through everything. If you guys have questions, feel free to stop me and we can talk through them. All right. So this is who are we as M&J. So I think our little graphic might be a little bit out of date because we just had a merger. We acquired some more. I think it was 12/1 that was finalized. So. We got 6 states here. I think we're in 8 and up to 20 offices now. And I don't remember exactly how many employees, but everything's a little bumped up from that. But so for this year's audit, the engagement partner, that was Leanne Vagasala. She couldn't be here tonight, but she was the partner on this engagement. So any questions that I can't answer, I bet she can. All right, so the first one is just the audit opinion. So going through that. So for this, so let's see. For this one, you guys got a clean opinion, which is a modified opinion. So on that, that's the highest level of assurance that we can give. So as far as everything, we'll have some notes in here, but overall, the financial statements get a clean opinion. So here's just a snapshot of net position. So this is everything all together. So governmental, proprietary, everything all in one shot. So you can see on the right is kind of in the middle is 2024. On the left is 2025. And so we've kind of got a differential column on the right that shows increase or decrease from the prior year. And so if you see here, we've got a total for current year of $313 million, up from $288 million in prior year. That's good. Most of that is made up of net investment and capital assets. You've got some restricted that's also in there. It's a little smaller percentage. And then the rest of that is the unrestricted. So we also got compliance reports. So we also do our, so for the single audit, we do reports and issue an opinion on those as well. So we had 2 major programs this year. One was federal, one was state. We didn't find any issues, didn't have any findings on that. So another clean opinion. Okay, so we've got financial performance indicators of concern. So just a couple on these, and we'll talk through these. So the first one here on the left, I'm sorry, this is the timeline. So within 45 days of the report submission, we must present the audit report and financial performance indicators. That's what we're doing right now. And so after that, you guys have 60 days to I guess not verify, but kind of authorize those. And so here's the FBICs. So first one here at the top, so water and sewer fund, capital asset condition ratio. That's not a new one. That's something that you guys have seen before. And so we've kind of talked about in the past. If you notice, it got better this year, and we kind of expect it to incrementally go up as we go through the years. And so that's just based on age of assets, kind of not necessarily anything that's a imminent concern, but just kind of just like I say, an indicator. It kind of gives you an idea of, hey, age of assets is something to maybe keep an eye on, and you guys have already addressed that, and so we expect that to get better as the years go on.
What is the number in the range that you would look for?
So anything below 50% will kind of trigger that FBIC, and it's just based on age of the assets. Just kind of a heads up of you've got some older assets that are there, and so like I say, I think that has been addressed and will continually creep up as the years go along, as those assets kind of phase out. Also, we've got, for internal controls, there was a material weakness that was noted this year for closeout. And so we can kind of talk a little bit more about that, but it was corrected. It was just entries that came after the audit was started, and so we had to note those to complete our audit. But they have been corrected and are reflected in the financial statements that you guys have. Okay, so this year we did not issue a management letter. There were not management letter comments that we needed to address. The only thing that we did want to kind of highlight here is the city did spend down fund balance on the general fund by $6.6 million during the fiscal year. There's a budgeted transfer of $12 million to the capital reserve fund to fund council initiatives. Approximately $1.9 million was used to purchase land for the 400-acre park property. The capital reserve fund ended the fiscal year with a fund balance of about $21 million, which is an increase of about $10.4 million from the prior fiscal year ended. So just something to note. Okay, so next one are a couple of required communications that we just kind of have to talk through on these. So first one, significant accounting policies. So management's responsible for selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. That's not our role. That's not management. Significant accounting policies used by the city are described in Note 1 of the financial statements that you guys have. During the current year, you guys implemented GASB 101 for compensated absences and 102 for risk disclosures. Those were new GASBs that came out and were properly implemented. Policies are in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, as they should be. And in considering the qualitative aspects of its policies, the city is not involved in any controversial or emerging issues for which guidance is not available. You guys don't really have anything that's necessarily out of the ordinary that we've never seen before, anything that is really all that saying. Management judgments, so accounting estimates are an integral part. Everyone's going to have accounting estimates to do financials. The city uses various estimates as part of this financial reporting process, including the actuarial assumptions. We've evaluated those. Okay, continuing. Relationship. We had a good working relationship. We didn't have anything that stood out, any disagreements or anything like that that would have impacted the financials. So management representation, we requested and received written representations from management relating to accuracy of information, including financials, and completeness and accuracy of other various information we got for our audit. We get a management representation letter. All of that's included in there, is what that's saying. Consultation of other accountants. Best of our knowledge, there was no other outside accounting firm or anything like that that was used throughout the year that we would have needed to evaluate a little extra. Significant issues, we didn't really run across any significant issues that would have thrown out red flags or needed more work to be done there for the audit. Continuing, so audit adjustments, we did have one past audit adjustment. It was immaterial. It was related to leases. I think there was a lease that maybe ended a little early. The total of that was $63,515 in the water fund, which, like I say, was not material. So it was not a finding on that. Financial statement disclosures, the footnote disclosures are also an integral part. So basically those are, you'll see when you read through your financial statements, you'll have a little extra information in the footnotes that kind of break things down a little bit more than kind of just the high level statements of you'll have say capital assets or debt. The footnotes will break that down a little bit more. Information and documents containing audited financial statements. So our responsibility is for the information that are in the audit report. If you guys do anything else publishing those statements, kind of just give us a heads up is really all that's saying. Auditor independence, we are independent. We do annually a independence check. We didn't have any issues noted with our firm or our staff. Okay, so new GASB pronouncements for future years. So we talked about GASB 101, 102. We've got 103 coming down the pipe. We don't expect this one to necessarily affect the financials like a GASB 101 of a new liability or anything like that. It's really more of presentation, just kind of MD&A and just kind of how the financials are presented. Different sections is really more of what that will affect. But that will be for fiscal year 26. So next time we come and talk to you guys, we'll probably be talking about that one. Okay, next one. So next one's just current and pending major GASB projects. So these are not ones that are 100% coming down the pipe. These haven't been fully authorized. So these are just kind of things to give you a heads up of, hey, this could potentially be 27, 28 on down the road. So the first one is revenue and expense recognition. Severe financial stress evaluation and disclosures and RSI surrounding infrastructure assets. So if those come to be and kind of get more finalized, more concrete, that'll be something we'll talk about with management. All right, last one we got here. So we do quarterly. We have continuing education that's free and available. I think the staff may already be, I think you guys may already be signed up for those, but that is something that we offer for free for our audit clients. And that's all I've got. Any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Considering that the city of Jacksonville receives federal dollars, when our country is in a state of a sequestration or the shutdown, did you see any negative impact as it related to the audit when the government was shut down?
I would say the biggest thing that affected the audit was the timing. So talking about the compliance supplements is a lot of that was just sort of, things were sort of slow on the federal government side as far as getting those compliance supplements. So that just kind of pushed our timeline a little bit back. We were still on time and everything like that, but just based on kind of traditionally where we've sort of been, that was probably the biggest impact that we saw, was just kind of timeline for getting our compliance supplements that we saw that actually affected the audit.
So because that was an unintended consequence, it would not have a prolonged negative impact on the city of Jacksonville?
Not from what we saw, the areas that we were looking at.
Thank you.
The findings that you had,
Sure.
they were just more or less ledger.
Yeah, so they were entries that came in. I believe I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head exactly which ones there were. I believe there was a
There was a receivable. It was
receivable.
booked as a deferred revenue instead of a receivable. So we had to back out the deferred revenue and rebuild it.
And so it was really just a reclassification, and I believe that was in the proprietary fund.
And the GASBs, they change very regularly, don't they?
There's always
moving target, isn't it?
Well, there's always updates. Then they come down and we kind of have to adjust to them. But there's always updates and continually trying to improve that they will issue. But there can definitely be changes, and anytime you have changes, is trying to adjust to those because it's new.
And do they give you time to adjust to those, or is it?
They do. So kind of how we talked about the one that's coming in fiscal year 26, is kind of giving time to, hey, this one's coming down the pipe, or even the next slide that was talking about, hey, these are ones that are out there potentially. They're not concrete yet, but down the road this is what could come, and then generally they'll have a period between when it's announced and then when it's actually implemented to kind of give some heads up so people can have time to prepare. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now to the annual solid waste report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll go ahead and apologize because you get me for the next 3 items. And I told Terrell that I could do it in 5 minutes per slide, so we should be good.
Didn't tell you how many slides.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mayor, typically, just formally, we accept the audit report. It's a technicality, but we typically do that.
You want to do that in a workshop?
We typically do it here instead of bringing it to the next one, because the auditor doesn't come back, Mayor, and I wouldn't want anybody to ask those questions, so I apologize for that.
Well, need a motion to accept the auditor's report.
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion on the audit report? With that said, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You got it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Now you get me for the next 3. So tonight we're going to start with the annual solid waste report. This is appropriately timed because we are moving into the next budget season. Matter of fact, we've already had budget items due. In the last couple of years, we brought you the solid waste annual report fairly early because we've talked about plans for fee increases. So we wanted to go over that tonight. So just quickly, we'll do a brief overview, some historical information, and then we'll talk about our revenues and expenditures for the first 6 months of this fiscal year and tell you where we stand on our 3-year plan that we implemented. And then one of the things that we need to talk about this year that differs from the previous 2 years is our Sunoco contract, because we are at the end of our Sunoco recycling contract. And then we'll go over some of the things that will be included in consideration for your FY27 budget, and some of those may end up having to come back to you for additional consideration. So with that, the solid waste fund covers pretty much everything that our sanitation division does. It includes residential waste, recycling, vegetative pickup, bulk items, mattresses, furniture, pretty much anything you get to the curb that should legally be disposed of, we get rid of it. Small businesses, we do waste and recycling. That service is performed through can service, much like our residential service, but they don't get the benefits that the residents do for the bulky items and the vegetation because they are for profit. And then we have our commercial, which is our front end or our dumpster program, which does waste and recycling. As you'll recall, commercial is completely self-supported. All of the fees and revenues generated in commercial cover the commercial portion of sanitation. And in moving forward, 3 years ago, we talked about how the residential portion was not self-supported by user fees, and that we implemented a plan to get to there. So that's what this slide kind of shows you. You can see in FY23, our monthly bill was $18, and we had a general fund transfer of almost $2 million. We implemented a plan for fiscal year 24, 25, and 26 to take that basically to $30, so a $4 increase each year. And you can see the corresponding general fund transfer. Of course, as you know, we decided on that plan in FY23, and costs have changed significantly since that plan was implemented. But you can see that we're pretty on track with where we expected to be. So this is kind of what the actual numbers look like, and Sabrina gave me this maybe last week, so it should be fairly up to date. But you can see our revenues. We've collected year-to-date $6 million in revenues, and our full-year estimate is $10 million. I think what I'd like to point out is if you look at the second line down, the charges for services, that's basically the monthly fees that the residents pay, the small businesses pay, and then what the businesses pay. You can see that we're right on track 6 months in. We're right at half of what that, because it's pretty predictable. It may differ slightly for extra fees or set-asides that we may have. Our dollar trailer program, for example, where we collect $50. But it's, again, we're tracking with what our projections show. If you compare that to expenditures, you'll notice that our expenditures year-to-date are at $7 million, but our estimated is at 9.9. What I'd like to highlight on this side there are some things that we pay for upfront. An example would be capital outlay. So if we're buying dumpsters or trucks or equipment or anything like that, we have that very quickly into the beginning of the year. So you'll look, our full year estimate was $2 million, and we've already spent the full $2 million. So I wanted to highlight that to show that we can't just say, well, if you take $7 million and we're halfway through the year, we should be projecting for $14 million. It could be that some of those projections are accurate, they're just expended at the beginning of the year. If you go to salaries and benefits, you'll notice that we're really close with our projections because we're halfway through the year and we're about halfway through that projection. We're a little behind that because we do have turnover, and so you end up with vacancies and those kind of things where you're not paying that salary out, but we're still fairly close to what that full year estimate would be. So that kind of highlights where we are at this point. I don't have any recommendations to come to you to say, I think we should look at another $4 or anything like that. I think we need a little more time looking at the revenues we're collecting. We need to look at what those expenditures will continue to be and evaluate whether or not we would need additional general fund transfer. So I think that's something that we'll need to continue to look at as we move forward. But I do want to move to recycling briefly. I think one thing that I'd like to start out with is why we recycle. Recycling is expensive, but it's very important. The state law actually bans certain materials like glass bottles and plastic bottles. Those are easy ones to point at from landfills. So you have to have some other way of getting those out of your waste stream, which recycling is one of those ways. Recycling also extends the life of the landfill. A landfill is just that. It's a hole in the ground that's lined that we throw trash into. It is not an infinite location that we can continue to put things, and they're expensive to build and maintain and operate. So anything that we can keep out of the landfill helps to extend the life of that landfill. And then at the landfill, Sunoco has a contract with Onslow County to run we call it the MRF, but it's their materials recycling facility. And so the city actually picks up a mixed stream. Pretty much anything that's eligible to go in recycling goes into the recycling bin at the residence or the business. We pick it up, we carry it to the MRF at the landfill, and they're responsible for sorting it and then shipping it and making sure that it goes where it has value. So if you look at the city historically, we've recycled for a long time, but we've gone from where we separate it on the truck to where which you can, as you can imagine, that takes us much longer to pick up and takes more manpower to separate it and figure out where it's got to go, to at least we collect single stream and then we pay somebody to handle it and sort it and get it where it needs to go. I think I did that. So from there, it was just a test. See if I can operate the remote. So from there,
Put him on the block.
the contract ends this year. So we entered the contract in 2021 for basically 5 years. We had a 3-year with 1 2-year extension. That brought us to $115 per ton for the processing fee. So we pay the MRF, we pay Sunoco $115 per ton to handle our recycling. The good thing is our contract does have a clause in there. Recycling does have value. It's expensive, but it does have value. So we get a credit for the weighted average price of that recycling. And because our contract is expiring, we do need a new contract with Sunoco at the MRF. So the weighted average price is a commodity. Recycling is a commodity. It's traded. Each individual product has its own price point, but the industry uses a weighted method. So all of those are boiled down into a price per ton of commingled recycling, which is what we take to the landfill, to the MRF at the landfill. And ours is advertised, it's tracked. It's not like Sunoco sets the price. Again, it's a traded commodity. So we use the Southeast region on recyclingmarkets.net. And we have what this year looks like, so you can see that. So in January, we were in fiscal year of 25, that portion of the contract. So you can see our contract fee was $110, but the weighted average price or the value of that ton was $47. So we were actually billed from Sunoco for $62 per ton. So you can see that basically the contract fee is set, and Sunoco recognizes there's a value to that material, so they subtract the value of that material, and that's what we pay. And you can see it does fluctuate because it was at a high in April of $64, and now we're at a low in November of $26. So as you can see, it does fluctuate. And just to give you an idea, we take about 2,300 tons or 2,400 tons of recycling to the Sunoco for processing. Last year, it was a little bit more than that, about 100 tons more than that or so, but we're fairly consistent. And one thing that I would like to point out, because I think it's a value to our residents and a testament to our crews, we're pretty strict on our recycling. If it's contaminated, we don't pick it up. We inform the resident because we have, to this point, have not had any loads rejected, and if you have a load rejected, you get charged extra. So we have not had that happen. So we do have a very clean recycling stream, and Sunoco does appreciate that from the city. Not all of their haulers have that. So our proposed contract would look something like this. They would hold the $115 through FY27. And then in 28 and 29, we would have $5 increases. And then in 30, they would hold us at that, so that would be at 125. So for 29 and 30, we would be held at the 125, and then in 31, we would go up another $5. And at that point, we would look at having to renegotiate and enter a new contract. It would continue to subtract out that weighted average price, so that will bring the totaled down to whatever the value of that recyclable material is at that point. And again, they do have the right to reject and fine us for contaminated loads. So we would continue our recycling efforts and education with our citizens. So moving forward, a couple of things that we need to look at as part of the budget process is we think we need to evaluate our fee schedule. Our fee schedule is pretty complicated to understand. We get a lot of questions. We've done pretty good about making our bills more straightforward and some of our fee schedule components more straightforward. So that's something that we would look to continue as we move forward with FY27. Again, I think we need to evaluate our fees for our citizens based on our projections and just continue to monitor that, have that discussion with management and bring that back to you if it needs to come back to you. We need to finalize our contract with Sunoco, and we need to do that sooner rather than later. So what we would request is to include that on a future agenda for your discussion or review to authorize the manager to sign that contract. And we would probably do that at a subsequent meeting. We could even possibly put that on a consent agenda if you feel appropriate. And then we need to, or would like to, develop a model much like we have in the water and sewer fund. As you're aware, we have a water and sewer rate model where we plug all of our expenses, revenue projections into our rate model and it evaluates our rates. We would like to see the same thing developed for solid waste. Likely that would not be done for FY27, but that is something that we do intend to work on moving forward. So with that, that's really all I have for solid waste. I think I've said this before, we have a solid waste and sanitation program that is second to none. Pretty much if you get it to the curb, we will make it disappear. Tony and his people do an excellent job of that. We provide an excellent service both to our residential customers, but especially to our commercial customers. I get it quite frequently, and Tony gets it all the time. People own businesses in other locations, and they'll ask us, can you service there? Matter of fact, one is right outside of city limits, within a mile of where we currently pick up, and unfortunately, because they're out of city limits, we can't service them. But that store pays much more than a store he has a couple of miles up the road, and the service is much better. So just a credit to them.
Do you expect that the increase in tipping fees from the county?
The county, we have heard that the county is evaluating their tipping fees, but we don't know what that'll look like yet. So we're hoping that it does impact us if they increase, or if they change their methodology, it would certainly impact us. But we don't have any official communication yet.
That only impacts on the solid waste, not the recycling, because you'd be locked in on
That's
recycling,
correct. It would just be the solid waste portion.
Didn't they just do some upgrades to the landfill out there?
They did. They just opened a new cell. And just, one of the things that we don't advertise much, when we say recycling, we think a lot about the agreement we have with Sunoco and the MRF. But on top of that, we take our vegetation to Eastern Excavating, which is out off of Halltown Road, which is a savings to the city. And it's not really going in a landfill. It's a vegetative where it's, basically they're filling in a large hole. And so that material breaks down. So we get a savings there, and it's not taking up space in the landfill. We also separate out large metal. So where we pick up metal components, we actually take that directly to Fals's Recycling, and we collect cash from Fals's, and we put that back into the fund as well. So our recycling program is larger than just the MRF. So we try to use every stream that we have available.
What about appliances? Is that,
Appliances go to
Faucets.
faucets.
But they have to pay for that pickup, don't they?
No, we don't pay anything.
The resident pays for that pickup.
No, we don't. It's still on the fee schedule that we could charge them, but as long as we can dispose of it and collect funds for it, we're not charging the residents right now for it. We've continued to leave that on the fee schedule in case that
Changes.
ever went away. But yeah, we don't charge them for picking up metal.
And see, that's part of what we have to evaluate every year to see whether or not there's a need for a fee adjustment based on what some of our costs, our disposal cost, or, cost the city.
Well, it's to move toward that rate model, given this is an enterprise fund and it needs to operate, pay for itself as the goal.
Yes, ma'am.
That rate model will help a lot.
And it's still cheaper, because we did analysis towards what people pay in the county, it's still a lot cheaper.
Yeah, so I wanted to have a current bill for you, but unfortunately, my contact had thrown their bill away. But he has, he said he paid it, so he didn't see a need to keep it. But he's paying something like $40 a month or something, and it's once a week, trash, and every other week recycling. And Tony actually lives in the county and has basic service, once a week pickup, and your bill
I
is.
pay $30 for once a week trash, and that's it. So the same thing our residents are paying right now.
So, but there's,
No recycling, no couch pickup, no appliance pickup, no yard waste, nothing like that.
so we're a good deal, and we provide an excellent service for what they pay. All right. If it's all right, I'll move on to the next one. So this item comes before you because we want to talk about another intergovernmental service agreement, IGSA, with the base. If you recall, we just entered into an agreement for servicing Lejeune Memorial Gardens and helping with the Memorial Gardens and trash and cleanup and landscaping. So just a little bit of background. I know some of you have seen this slide before, but Jacksonville is a host community. We find it critical to support Camp Lejeune and New River. They're critical to our community, and we need to support them. And in doing that, we have multiple ways that we provide support. We have a couple of memorandums of understanding or agreements, so MOUs or MOAs, as some people refer to them. We are a member of the Cooperative Planning Group. That's leadership from the base, the mayor, and I believe the county. So that planning group meets, and I think they meet this week.
Next Thursday.
There you go, next week. And we are part of the Military Host Cities Coalition. Again, we have IGSAs, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment. We've done joint studies. We've participated in exercises. We have agreements to support them with 911. And we also are a member of the Onzo Water Resources Group, which is the city on WASA in the base. So we are involved a lot with the base. They've approached us about an IGSA to help support them with water and sewer repairs and operations. They're finding it extremely challenging to get support when they need it. And one of the things that's really a challenge for them is not necessarily funding, but being able to get a contract to spend the funds that they have available. And that's been one of their largest challenges. So what we're looking at is an IGSA that differs slightly from some of the others. Some of the others we have a defined scope of work with how much we will charge for that scope of work. This would be more, we have an agreed scope, area of scope, and they will send a request to us and we will price it for them, and then they say move forward or not. And the reason for that is water and sewer, as you can imagine, can be very unpredictable. A great example is what just happened to us on Highway 24. We had a sewer line failure that was 27 feet deep under 2 roads. It was under Highway 24 that you're familiar with. And as we dug down, we actually got to the original roadbed, which had not been taken up. So we actually dug through asphalt again at 20 feet deep. So as you can imagine, those can be hard things to plan for. And again, you never know exactly what you're going to need. It could be pump issues at a pump station today and a gravity sewer, or a water leak or pressure issues tomorrow. I got to keep my hand off that button. Just making sure you're paying attention. Hold it. So, talk with my hands, I apologize. So, the challenge there is how do we scope that in one agreement and provide a price to pay for it? It's not really feasible. So what we've gotten is a baseline agreement that says it will cover water and sewer operations equipment and stations, materials. So that includes chemicals. And if they need support, we will price it. And we can fill that with city forces. We can fill that with our vendors, our contractors. So there are some real advantages to this, both from the base because they get quicker response at sometimes a much cheaper rate than they would be paying, and it gives us some advantages. We could look at economies of scale. We have water treatment facilities. They have water treatment facilities. It could be that we partner to purchase chemicals in bulk and then have them delivered where they need to be delivered. We could use or leverage some of their system to offset some of our costs and vice versa. They have, in some cases, treatment challenges that we may be able to support. Not necessarily direct benefit to the city, but a benefit to some of the contractors we work with, especially some of our emergency on-call contractors. As you can imagine, we don't always call a major contractor up like TA Loving to come make a small water repair in the middle of the night that we're not able to make. So we would call a local company that may not have access to base. So this gives that company through us that access. So it's business that they would otherwise not be able to reach. Probably one of the biggest is quicker response. I was meeting with the director of their utility system, and he told me that they had a major problem at one of their lift stations that ended up being a spill, which we did support. They pumped and hauled to us because we were the closest, but he felt like if he could have gotten a pump that he could pay for, he would have been able to prevent that spill. The problem was he didn't have access to the pump through their contracting methods.
And we could have provided a pump.
We actually, come to find out, the size he needed, we actually had in our fleet. So, we talked about that. We could have provided that service immediately and likely prevented that spill from happening. So this will give us that avenue, that method, in order for us to support that. And then, the other great thing is they cover all of our expenses and our overhead. So if we have, our agreements currently are worded so that if we purchase materials for them, then they pay us the cost of the materials plus 10% to cover any administrative expenses or handling of the materials or anything like that. So there are a lot of opportunities that we see here. We don't have this agreement finalized yet, but we look to have this ready for one of your upcoming council meetings for you to consider. So just looking forward, we'll look to finalize that agreement. One of the things I haven't talked about is, I did talk about how funding can be difficult. The base, I talked to the base and I just asked them, if we were looking at this, how capable are you of paying us? And he's like, well, you just basically submit your invoice and we can pay it immediately. So as long as the scope is agreed upon, the amount is agreed upon, we submit it electronically and they can pay it. And I did ask them, when the government went into shutdown, it would not have impacted any of that funding. Matter of fact, we had another IGSA that we continued to work even while they were shut down. So the big thing is we have to upfront some of those costs. So when we bring that forward, one of the things that I'll request is a budget line to help upfront IGSA costs, with the thought being that it wouldn't be able to be used for anything but supporting IGSAs. It would come from the Water and Sewer Fund because it is water and sewer activities. And whatever is recovered from the base for covering that cost goes right back into that same account. So that would be, if we set that up, that would be part of the action that we would ask you to consider. And then we would look at their system and our system. They tell us that they have a lot of pumps that need to be serviced. They have a lot of spare pumps that they may not need, that we may have use of, that would be part of that agreement. So there's some inventories that we need to conduct on both sides, and then identify and develop those resources. Like I said, some of our contractors that may not would otherwise have access to do contracting on the base would have access through us, because their contract would be with us and us with the base, so the base is paying us. But that contractor would have to be able to physically get on base. So they would have to meet all of the base access requirements to get in the gate. So those are some of the things that we need to do as we move forward. And that's really all I have.
Mr. Hanson, I was going to ask you, with this IGSA, is this independent or interdependent of UNWASA?
It is independent. It would be between us and the base. We do have, historically through the Water Resources Group, we do have agreements where we have done studies and other things for the benefit of Onslow County as a whole, because we're all withdrawing from the same aquifer. So that is something that we need to be concerned about.
So does the base have any wells themselves?
They do.
Or we're doing Castle Haynes specifically?
So the base is 100% in the Castle Hayne, and us and OWASA are in both the Black Creek and the Castle Hayne. So we have some of the things that we've done with the base have been, we've installed monitoring wells. We've done a monitoring well study where that was evaluated. We've done a groundwater study where the groundwater of Onslow County has been looked at and modeled. And the way we've done that in the past, there's been no money that has exchanged hands, but the base covered what is within their installation, and us and OWASA partnered to cover everything outside of the installation.
Have we ever tapped into DSEP funding to help with projects like this?
We have tapped into DSEP funding for transportation-related projects.
But
But not water and sewer.
when there's opportunities, we do that. And in some cases, it may be not the city that's applying, it may be another agency that's applying. In fact, UNWASA did apply for some DSIP funds one year, but for their project, the sewer line from Swansboro. But it was not competitive in that DSEP program. And so that's part of the problem. But we do use it to take advantage of that. One comment, the CPG meeting next week, Thursday, the purpose of that meeting is to basically receive a briefing by a consultant that's conducting a joint resiliency study involving the base on Wausau, the county, the city. And what it's going to look at, two of the areas specifically are water and sewer. And so this is going to be the most comprehensive effort with water and sewer that we've had so far. And so it's a good thing. In other words, all this interaction that we're having with the base, and a lot of it is because of our interaction. The city has gotten the staff of the base very comfortable with what their rules allow them to do in working with local governments. And hopefully we will help on Wausau, have similar successes that we have had working with the base and helping both agencies. And
So
that's
the base is using their own contractors, their own consultants?
on this, no, this is a consultant that actually was hired by the county. This is money that comes out of the same organization that manages the DSIP money.
Okay.
Comes out of what used to be called OEA. It's now called OLDCC. And their funding, they provided the county over $1 million to conduct this study in conjunction with all of our partners.
When we work with Donzo Water Resources Group, they have their own contractor. They have their own engineer or consulting firm.
Is this going to require additional personnel for you?
Long-term, it could, but the great thing is we can fulfill that using any method we would fulfill our own needs. So we can bid it out. If it's an emergency, we can just call a contractor. So it's not saying that we would necessarily have to have a person to go fix their station. In the long term, if we decide that's the most economical way, then that's certainly an option, but there's nothing that says we have to have additional staff to go do that, because we can support it with private.
When you make a decision as to what the price line is going to be for that, you would have to figure all that into it.
That's correct. We anticipate that if it's something straightforward like pulling a pump and motor, which they have, that's one of their challenges. If it's something like that, we'll probably send one of our mechanics over with our crane truck and we'll be able to pull that. If it's digging and repairing a sewer main or something like that, we'll probably hire a contractor to do that.
See, we in the signals area, which is our first IGSA we had with the base, by entering into agreement with the base and adding to our workload and getting funding from the base, we were able to add a signal tech, which basically increased our capacity, and made for better rotation for on-call and that. And we could see the same thing if there was a continued demand for, like Wally cited, this pulling a pump. Well, we do that all the time.
Yes.
So we might hire another mechanic, and basically be able to handle that, and it's going to be paid for by the base's revenue, not the city's.
Do we currently have city staff working on that project on 24?
We don't anymore.
Because I thought I saw some trucks just recently before the Christmas vacation.
We did prior to Christmas, and I think it was actually Christmas Eve, we got the whole back filled and turned over to DOT, and DOT did the paving.
Is there an estimated timeline when it will be completed? Because base traffic is just horrendous around 4 o'clock down to that single one.
It's supposed to be, the 9th was the date that was given, and I think DOT is trying to make that or make it earlier.
January 9th?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see that because it's where it is, DOT has to be involved in backfilling and that. And
They were paving today. The paving machine was out there today. So I don't know how far they got. I'm sorry, I hadn't had time to get out there.
Have any people call from local businesses about people not being able to get there very easy?
We haven't heard, I haven't taken any complaints. My staff hasn't taken any complaints.
The access to the parallel road is really still available.
Yes.
You know,
That's
so
the only way you can get off.
Get there, yeah.
And the
You're coming off
local,
base, that's the only way you can use.
I will say that Holcomb, the people, coming out of Wilson Gate,
Yes, that's the one.
coming out of Wilson Gate, they actually, more people are going down
the access road.
the access road than previously.
Yeah, that's a shortcut.
It is.
Coming off of Wilson Gate.
Yes. That traffic on that road actually picked up
Yeah.
with the closure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not bad.
No.
All right. Last one. This one should be fairly quick. In your agenda, we have a copy of the capital improvement plan. It's a draft. We would ask that you review and provide any comments. But just a brief overview, the capital improvement plan is a 10-year document. This year it will be 27 through 36 would be the affected years. The purpose is to show project cost estimates, revenue and expenditures, identify funding sources, and then prioritize those projects for funding and for completion. To be a project in the capital improvement plan, the project generally has to be a asset that takes longer than 12 months to complete. Really, you're talking about a physical asset here. You're not talking equipment or vehicles or computer equipment or anything like that. It's some sort of physical infrastructure or structure. Cost has to exceed $50,000, have a useful life of greater than 5 years, and FY27 is the funded year. So the projects that are shown in 28 through 36 are shown for planning, but those dollars aren't funded. So FY27 is the only year that is funded.
Why don't they include like trucks and equipment? I imagine those pump trucks and dump and to the trash trucks aren't cheap.
Fire truck.
You're
Takes
correct,
longer
fire
than
truck
12 months to
engine.
build, and it costs more than $50,000.
We actually have an equipment replacement plan. So we have a separate plan to handle those. And many of those things in the equipment replacement plan they follow a life cycle. So that's where all of our police cars are, our jet trucks, our fire trucks are all in that equipment replacement plan. We even have HVAC equipment and computer equipment and radios in the equipment replacement plan.
How does it work when you have these new neighborhoods coming in? We have more services, so you have to add, more trucks, to be able to handle that. How does that work in that case? You got with two neighborhoods with almost 1,000 houses apiece going in.
As a director, the hardest thing to add is an FTE, full-time equivalent, a person.
Yeah.
So that has to come to you as part of the budget, and we would do that as a departmental request. And you will, in the near future, you will see those. The good thing is the way that developments, especially large subdivisions, develop out, it's not like they're not here today and they're tomorrow. They typically build out over a time period. Carolina Forest was 5 to 6 years. Williamsburg Plantation was probably 8 to 10 to where they are now. So you don't typically see a large upfront request. You would kind of see that incrementally and added. From a water and sewer standpoint, it does mean more that we have to maintain and monitor and camera because we have to do 10% of our system. But again, it's not added all at one time. And the good thing is the new stuff is added is not the stuff that has to be repaired right away. Now, if you look at some of our developments, we do have to pick up trash right away. So you may see a request for a trash truck or a crew or something like that, but that would be all through the departmental issue which would come through city management
And build into the annual budget.
and build into the annual budget.
Yeah, tonight you had that action on annexation, and that's potentially 843 units. So when we get up to that public hearing, Mr. Massey will give you that report, and he'll show you the economic impact of that, and then is there a cost-benefit analysis? How does that impact us directly? The example here is, if you look at that 843 units at $300,000 per unit, theoretically that increases the tax base by $1.7 million. What does that mean? That means police, fire, parks. It means all of those services have to be covered by $1.7 million for that year. Like Wally said, they may not all be front-loaded, but they have to accomplish that over time. We're not looking to make money off the tax base. We're looking to utilize taxes to provide those services. On the utility side, utilities have to pay for themselves. So the water and sewer, theoretically, will pay for that over time. But if you need equipment, you've got to front load those, just like the other type of IGSA contracts. Those are business accounts that have to be front loaded with a back end return on investment. And so every time we see that, which we haven't seen real economic growth in our tax base for 10 years, now with the number of permits that you've got coming through and the annexations that you're seeing, we're going to see some growth, especially in that area of town. So as Wally's prediction is, that's an entire new sanitation route. That's going to matter to something. That's X number of police calls, X number of emergency calls. These are all going to be impacted within that budget. So as we start looking at that level of growth, we do want that to pay for itself, but we have to stay ahead of it, and it's going to matter on staffing. That's why we look at maximizing utility of existing staff to make sure that when the growth does come, we present that back to council, and it's got some foundation for you to make those decisions. But
We still have to go to school.
Yeah. And in 800, it's a sanitation route.
Yeah.
800.
Then the county has the bigger issue of how do you get the school in there? The social services respond, like what is that impact it's going to have over and over again?
And the sanitation, as we talked about tonight, that is, it's not figured into that tax base. It's $30 a month times 800 times 12. I can't do that math in my head, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what would have to cover. I want to see. Maybe we should ask.
I wasn't listening well enough.
So, but that's what would have to cover sanitation over the life of that development. But it doesn't, it's not like Tony's got 800 new accounts to pick up tomorrow.
Correct.
So.
Okay.
And that's the kind of presentation, when we look at these annexations in the public meetings, we want to have those dialogues because we want our citizens to understand that's the impetus, that's the if and then that has to happen over and over again. It doesn't just happen on a daily basis where we're trying to add something. And the IGSAs are beautiful because those are all business type accounts. We wouldn't enter into an IGSA and go negative in a business function, just like we're trying to do with sanitation. We make sure that the IGSA is a business function that keeps us ahead.
Yeah.
It's going to make something because we're seen as a service provider. And as Wally says, that markup that we add is a business function. If they were going to hire someone, they would have that markup, just like whenever time we hire a firm to do something, they have a markup. We're not just paying for their expenses, we're also paying their profit. We're that entity based on that relationship that provides them that service. And back to Dr. Washington's comment, our water and sewer can't happen in this region without all three entities. Yes. Without the base and without UNWASA and the city of Jacksonville, we cannot grow. We'll be like all these communities that the mayor keeps talking to where they don't have their own water and sewer any longer and they don't have support agencies. You can't have growth in job creation or in residential growth or even fun factor if you don't have those utility systems. Without the base, we don't have the necessary wastewater treatment capacity, the water capacity that we need in certain areas because you have to deliver and collect. So the partnerships matter over and over again, and that's the beauty of everything Wally said earlier. It all ties into these items collectively.
So next up is just, again, it's part of your agenda item. If you would look through those, if you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to your liaison. If there's a project that you think we've missed or is not included, please reach out and let somebody know. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy, just work through your liaison and we'll be happy to sit down with you and answer any question on any project you might have. So, and just a rough timeline. We're halfway through our start of the CIP that you have in front of you. The one thing that I will point out is the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee does get all of the water and sewer projects. So and those have been presented to them. They have an opportunity to review them. Our next step for water and sewer is to input the proposed FY27 budget and the capital improvement plan into our rate model and look at any impacts to our water and sewer rates. So with that, I'm finished.
Thank you, Wally.
Welcome.
Very good presentations.
It's beyond impressive, Mayor. I just want to say that.
Mr. Ray, you got
Placement
one
now
city
that ECU.
moments.
I do, Mayor. I have a few one city moments, but I think I'm going to lead with the fact that Wally just went through, it seemed like 12 presentations in about 45 minutes. So I think everybody,
Probably a record.
when you drive home tonight, please think about that, what he just accomplished. It was very impressive. It was very good. Mayor, our fire department and our media team and some of our parks team have been actively delivering our calendars. Calendars are the most important function that we have in our city every year. If we do not deliver calendars, 73,400 people are disappointed. If you have not received a calendar, then we encourage you to come by City Hall. We do have some copies left here at the front desk, so come on in. The calendars include our meetings, our ceremonies, our events, holiday schedules. Most importantly, it includes its closure information and sanitation schedules. I'll also add that if individuals have any concerns about that information, please go to the website and sign in for City Connect. If you didn't get those updates during the holidays, you may not have known what our sanitation collection system is. So utilize that process. But when you see our fire department come through, this is a passion project for them where they have decided. We ask if they need someone else to deliver the calendars, and Chief Tallman said, no, we've got this. We don't need your help. Get out the way. So once again, it's the fire department stepping up to serve, and we appreciate them going door to door because that's a very extensive project, and it's a good collaboration. If you'll notice this year when you flip through your calendar, you got a theme about what our home is. And so as you go month to month, you'll see a new part of our story and our message that our media team has put together this year. Over the holidays, we had a lot of events that our team was very excited to present. Winterfest is a huge event for us, mostly because we make our own snow here in the city of Jacksonville. So for those people that only get to see snow every 5 or 10 years, we have snow every single year in Riverwalk Park. And for Winterfest, it's exciting to see the events that we have. That was on December 5th through the 7th. We also had our artisan market in the Commons in the facility. So to be able to have craft fair, especially during the holiday, we have a large group of people that enjoy crafting in our community, not just the crafters, but the people that like to go in with a little bit of disposable income and make purchases. If you haven't done anything for next year on your Christmas shopping yet, go ahead and start planning to go there. There are a number of items that I like at the craft fair, so go check it out. I do eat cookies. We did have the city tree lighting ceremony, and we had multiple members of council that were able to be there. I do not know what all kids that they took up, but I know that each council member took a kid up to stage, and they were very excited. One individual was more talkative than others, but they were very passionate and excited to be on stage. Required a little direction, and I think at some point Miss Edwards did have to have her microphone turned off, but it was a great process, Mayor. It was very, very talented, and thank you for the council members that were present.
If I'm there, I'll let you say whatever you think.
I'm not saying who had to stop talking, Mayor. I'm just saying they turned the microphone off at a point. The community holiday concert, this has become something that is a priority project here in the community where the 2nd Marine Division Band performs, and it's incredible. It's over at River of Life Church. They bring in toys and food donations, but the whole event is about the impact of bringing the community together to have General Rizzo there and the mayor there and Pastor Phillips there and the band. It's just an awesome event pulled together. When the church built that facility I'd have to think that they had this kind of event in mind where we bring multiple people together. The parking works out, the location's great, and the band is fantastic. They also had an appearance from Santa Claus and the Grinch, and I just didn't know that that's part of what the Marine Corps does, but it blows my mind. They have so much talent on that stage that night and throughout the year. Anytime you can see them perform, I encourage you to check it out because it's a moving experience. Then we had our Environmental Appearance Committee going around doing the annual holiday decor competition. So they went around and looked at lights throughout the community. So these are the folks that joined on the bus. And this is the winner over on Hillsborough Loop. A lot of great decorations this year, and to be able to select winners and to appreciate it, I think they may have had more fun than everybody else just riding around throughout the process. Great process for us to be able to recognize our citizens and the efforts of the holiday spirit. It's not about the lights, it's not about the presents, but on that night, it's good to be recognized. So for that committee, Mayor, very, very great job. I'll tell you, we had Mrs. Claus show up at our partner of Sturgeon City, reading to the kids, which is an amazing event. You can't have Santa without Mrs. Claus, and these kids were very appreciative, and it's awesome to be over at Sturgeon City. And then the last thing, Mayor, Santa was over at Riverwalk Park. Our parks crew puts on a labor of love, and they hand out hot chocolate and candy, and then you have Santa Claus there for 3 nights. I think they were this December 16th, 18th, and 19th. The best part about that season is we have so many partners in and around the city making things happen, and to have this opportunity is great, not only for our young kids, but for our older kids as well. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This time I would entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss some items to protect our attorney-client privilege.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?